Awesome. We've got some people rolling in. Hi, guys. Welcome to the Written Word Spotlight. I'm so excited to have Jen Huang today to talk all about life, motherhood, and also business. I am so excited because, well, today is Jen's birthday.
Oh, great.
I know. Sorry to make you work today.
Starting it out really uncomfortable.
So sorry.
No, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's wait for some more people to jump on.
Okay.
And yeah, awesome. Oh, we've got about 9 people joining on our live right now. Hi, guys. Welcome to our live. We want to know if you guys are here. Can you write a comment or hit like, just so we know where you're coming from, who you are, what you do. Yeah, so this is going to be a really interactive experience. We would love for you guys to post your comments, questions on the comment side. That way we know who is on here and that we could get answers to your questions. Hi, Rin. Thanks for joining. Yeah, it's a little bit of self-managing the moderating your questions that are coming up here. Hi, Katie. Welcome. You're coming from Toronto. That's awesome. Thanks, guys, for jumping on. So today, Thursday, what are you up to today, Jen?
Today, it started out really well. My little boys brought me a little muffin with candles on it this morning. Total surprise. Total what is it called? It's like one of those like TV moments, but it felt really cute and special. They're so adorable. So it started out really great.
That's awesome. That's so cute.
Yeah.
I'm actually excited to get to that point. How old are your boys now?
5 and 2.5.
So cute.
Thank you, Kira. Hi, Jay.
Hi, Kira. Hi, Jay. Yeah, Jay was one of my students in my workshops a while back. Glad to see you guys jumping on. Thank you. Hi, Lauren. Thanks, guys, for joining in. We're going to start in a few minutes, but just waiting a little bit more for people to jump on. So we're just, chatting a little bit here with Jen where we get on to the meat of the matter. Sorry.
Not much else planned for today besides just catching up on work and like I was telling you before, everyone has been sick. Anyone else have the flu or had the flu? It's been so bad this winter.
I was pretty lucky, like Chase, pretty much. I don't know, this season for us, especially in Vancouver, it's so rainy over here. So I feel like every kid that's been to daycare has like a perpetual snot nose.
Oh yeah, that's 24/7. It's every single month of the year for us. But the flu has just been like the fevers and stuff have been so very sad. Yeah.
Hi guys, there's so many more people joining. Hi Vicky, hi Chantel. Hi Danielle. Thanks guys for joining.
I like the Oklahoma rep.
Oh, are you guys photographers, calligraphers? We've got a whole slew of different people joining us today. I'm so excited about that. Yeah, so how about let's start off with something really easy. And Jen, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, especially for some of the people here that may not know you yet.
Yeah, well, I'm Jen Huang, and I am primarily a wedding photographer and portrait photographer. I live in Santa Barbara. It's really nice to see you all jumping on here. And Carla and I, we know each other from, well, the industry, but we also did a little workshop together called the Artist Holiday, which is where I first met her and became friends. And I'm super honored to be on here and really excited for our chat.
Yeah, I know. I haven't ever told you, but that workshop really pushed my boundaries in, really making like a lot of in-person workshop content to make it look even better than before.
Amazing. Oh, I know your workshops always look so beautiful.
Thank you.
Mhm.
But yeah, I just always loved your aesthetic and your work and everything. So I was just so blessed to have you here today to
Thank
chat about
you.
all things life and business.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, anyone who has a question pop up, please do ask because we're looking at all the comments as we're talking. So we'll do our best to answer any questions that pop up.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you guys for jumping on and writing up a comment on who you are, where you're from, because that will really help. Because sometimes we don't really know the people on Instagram, right? Like, I know them by their handle, but
Mhm.
not by their name.
Right.
Like written word calligraphy, it doesn't say Carla Lim in it. So unless they actually know me, they don't know my name is Carla.
Right.
Yeah. So, but thanks guys for jumping on. If you want, you can even put in your Instagram account on the comments so that we know who you are later on. But awesome.
I
So
like these photographers here. Hello, photographers. Yay.
someone from South Africa. I've got someone from Michigan who's Taiwanese. Cool. But yeah, lots of photographers jumping on today for sure. They definitely want to hear what you had to say today, Jen.
I'm happy to share.
Yeah. So tell us, how did you get into photography?
So I actually got into photography on the side of a real 9 to 5. I was working in advertising in New York, and it was one of those like really trendy jobs that I think people are really happy to have, and I just really didn't have the personality for it, and I kind of just got burned out really, really fast. And I started shooting on the side. My parents wouldn't let me quit until I actually had income. So I had to prove to them that I could make money. And so I just started doing photography on the side and just really just fell in love with it. Like I think after you shoot your first wedding, you kind of know like, yes, I can do this or no, I'm never going to do this again. And for me, I just kind of like, it was very natural feeling for me to just go into shooting weddings more and more. And then finally, once I was able to, pay my own bills, I was like, hey, mom and dad, like I'm quitting. And that was the best day, going full time. And I always tell people if you're ever worried about going full time, you should do it because if you have the passion for it, it'll work out.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's awesome. I mean, what made you move out from New York to Santa Barbara?
Well, as most people on the East Coast know, right now it's probably like 45, 50 degrees, snowing. I have always been a California person, like in my soul. And I knew that I was going to move out to California. And thankfully, with my job, I was really working both coasts. So then I was just like, okay, I get to pick where I want to live. And if I need to fly to New York, I'll fly to New York. But otherwise, the rest of the time, I can be in California.
Yeah,
And like I said, I live in Santa Barbara, and Carla's been to Santa Barbara.
so
So she
beautiful.
knows it is paradise here. It is so
Yeah,
beautiful. The weather is always nice. It's never humid. There's no bugs. I could go on and on.
I know. Like seriously, I don't even know why your kids are still sick. Right? Like where are they getting these bugs from when the weather's so nice?
Yeah. We got a question. Do we want to answer it?
Yes.
Okay, so the question says, it's from Danny or Donnie. I apologize if I pronounced your name incorrectly, but was there a specific moment in time where you felt like you finally had a breakthrough with your work? Some people have worked with one stylist or one wedding, and it changed the trajectory of their work. Or was it a slow, gradual process? Which is such a good question because I'm like thinking back now to what really created a breakthrough. I will say the first few years of my wedding work, my photos were absolutely horrific. And I think that like I thought they were good, but they were really, really bad. And now whenever I think my work is good, I think back to like the first years when my work was so bad and I'm like, I gotta like turn that ego down, right? So I'm constantly thinking how to be better and how to do better. I will say I was really lucky in the first few years of my work because that's when Style Me Pretty and all the online blogs started. And that really helped me get my name out there. I think if there weren't blogs at that time, it would have been much more old school. And when it's old school, it's more about, you know, your reputation, your connections to people, networking, something that I hate. So it may not have been as good for me. So I think a big push for me was being in the right place at the right time, and getting my work online. And then the other was really just learning to treasure the relationships that I had. Like, you know, like our friendship, Carla, is really important to me. And I think that when I find people with the same aesthetic um, as mine, I really treasure those relationships because we create such like beautiful, consistent work together. And then that in turn makes us stronger artists.
No, absolutely. I understand that completely because it's like then there's continuity with it, right? And then you will constantly like treasure those relationships.
Right.
Kind of like how I, you know, every now and then I work with Joy.
Yes.
Right? Joy Proctor. Working with her was definitely my breakthrough with my work initially, right? Because when she came on and wanted me to do something, and at that time my work wasn't even, I would say, something I was proud of, but she trusted me enough to do whatever her vision was, and like, so it really pushed me. And
yeah. Yeah, I think the appropriate, like really good vendor friends, really good artists that you look up to, if you have the chance to work with them, every time it's like a push in the right direction because you're always stretching, you're always challenging yourself and not doing the same old thing over and over again.
exactly, because typically, you know, the thing about working for clients, even though it's really fun and great, most of the time they have something in mind that it's more just about what they need, but they don't know what like the creative direction would be, you know? So it's actually, yeah, like working with the other vendors, working on different locations and stuff like that. It's what pushes the creativity a bit further, or at least that's what has been my experience so far. It's maybe 25% of my brides have a really, really creative vision that I could like really take off and like do something completely different, you know? But, yeah. Awesome. Wow,
We have a lot of questions. Oh my God, Kira says it's exactly 45 degrees today. Yeah, it's so cold there, guys. Stay warm. So really quick, this question about film or digital. I started with shooting digital in my wedding work, but I was shooting film on the side for my personal work. And then within about I think 2 years, I transitioned fully to film. And now I'm basically 100% film. And then in terms of the initial investment for a startup business, I think it changes for everyone, but um, it's very different, I think, depending on whether you're single and you have no costs, or if you have a family and you have to support a whole family. I think your initial investments change a lot. When I first started, I had nothing except for myself to take care of, so I could really spend where I wanted to spend. But I think if you were to ask me now if I wanted to start a business, I'd have to really think twice about all of those expenses. And I always say, like, cover your costs. So whatever you're doing, if you buy one camera, make sure you're not overspending on a new camera until you're ready to pay off your first camera. So you just like applied that to the rest of your business.
No, absolutely. I mean,
business questions here. I love it.
yeah, no, I mean, I'm sure they're all interested in that too. Yeah. I mean, what were the first few things that you did in your business when you first started out?
The first few things? What do you mean? Like
Like
expenses
you
or?
mentioned that you had, you know, worked with some of the blogs. Like, I guess in the beginning, what did you do? Did you set up a website? Like,
Yeah, I set up a horrible website.
yeah.
It was hideous. Java website, ugliest thing you'll ever see. And I think I did like 3 more versions of ugly websites before it got to something that I actually liked. And I think the other things that I did, I spent money on very little in terms of equipment. I was always very minimalist about that kind of stuff. And back then when I started, people weren't really doing a lot of styled shoots and inspiration shoots. Like I find that a lot of photographers now, like their entire portfolio is inspiration shoots, which is really great. But my start was really work. Like I just worked. I did 50 weddings a year at ridiculously low prices. They weren't all beautiful, but I just worked, you know. And I think that a lot of people forget that that you just have to be out there working, whether it's gorgeous or within your aesthetic or not. The first few years, you're just kind of like making money, trying to stay alive, and that's a great way to get experience.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it helps identify what you don't want to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, have you ever turned down a wedding because the location was horrible?
Um, it depends. The answer
At the
changes.
beginning you didn't, right? Maybe at the beginning you didn't. You're like,
At the beginning, I mean, even now, um, sometimes I don't even know what the venue is until I get there. A lot
okay.
of times I don't. Um, but I don't. I think it's really important to separate yourself from clients that don't have your kind of that aren't your soulmates. You know. So the location is not as important as a relationship with that client as the trust.
Right.
Um, Sometimes it's my job to make a location that's not that great look great.
Right.
And that's part of the challenge. And so I don't like to say like, oh, I'm going to turn down a wedding because of location. I don't think that's
Yeah.
the right way, you know, to look at that. But I do think that turning down a wedding, if the bride or the groom are not really in line with your principles,
Right.
that's much more important, because then you get into really difficult relationship issues later on.
Yeah. I personally have fired a client or a potential client just because of, yeah, like the style that they're looking for, or the aesthetic is really not matching mine. And then all obviously it's the talking, the the conversation prior to actually even booking has
Mhm.
been difficult. Then I would be like, I'm really sorry, I don't think we're a good
Yeah.
match.
Yes, exactly.
I'm sure you've
Um,
had some of those difficult conversations.
Yeah, thankfully not so much anymore. I think that everyone goes through a transitional period where okay, I like to think of it as kind of the same as growing up, right? You've got your first few years where you're a toddler or a baby and you don't know anything, right? You're starting out, people are teaching you just the basics of how to walk and to sit and to spoon food into your mouth. And that's a really cute period for businesses. But then you go into your adolescence, and that's when you think you're really all that, right? Like you're a teenager and you decide you have enough experience to go out into the real world and do what all the adults do, but actually you're totally dumb and you have no experience and you don't know anything. And that's what I call the awkward phase. And I think everyone goes through that phase where they're like, oh my God, I'm here. Look at my beautiful work. Look at my beautiful website. Like that's when I had my hideous website and I thought it was really awesome. And then you have to go through your adulthood where you're like, okay, now we're serious. Now I know who I am. I know I'm not that goth teenager. I'm this person. And then that's when stuff starts to really make sense and starts to get easier. And you get to make decisions that are more consistent, and you have a strong brand and all of that.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, you've talked a couple of that, like, being an adult now, in your journey, being in it for so long. So
Mhm.
how do you think about um how then do you approach these customers? Like, I've always known that you've marketed yourself well now, right? Like come you're done with your adolescent stage of awkwardness. Your website is no longer hideous. So how
Hopefully,
now do
it still might be. It might be hideous still, and I won't know
5 years from
sure.
now look back and like, why did I post that image?
Yes, yes. So in terms of finding clients before versus now, right? Like how
Yeah.
did I get to that point? Definitely there have been times where the client and I were not the right fit. And I think that mostly the problem stems from me not putting out the work that represented who I actually was, or not being consistent in branding, or not being consistent in pricing. Especially when you're starting out, I think pricing is one of those difficult things you have to figure out early. Like if you're too cheap, right, you may actually be working with the wrong people. And sometimes if you're giving anyone a discount, which I totally did when I first started, those ended up always, always, always being the worst relationships. And now I do not discount or negotiate my pricing. And it's mostly because well, one, I want to be fair to all my clients, but also two, I want to make sure that whoever hires me isn't just there to talk numbers, that they're hiring me because they want me to be their artist. And I think starting out, a lot of the times I really was just more concerned about keeping my business afloat. And so it was whatever work came my way, I would take it. I would definitely give discounts in order to retain business. And those were probably some of the worst mistakes.
That's so insightful, Jen, because I think like yeah, it's a lot of people are probably still in that stage where you're, you know, struggling still of identifying yourself in the market and making sure you're pricing yourself properly and branding yourself, and because you're trying to keep your business afloat, that you would try to discount yourself. But if you were to do it all over again, would you do the same thing?
I mean, without advice, like would I make the same mistakes?
No,
Or
now knowing that you've done.
oh, like what I would tell myself if I could go back in time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. I think all of us would go back in time and be like, don't eat that cupcake. Or, you know, or, you know, just, I think, yeah, all of my wedding years have been a learning experience. You know, anytime there's a bad relationship or something bad that happens, I immediately rewrite all of my kind of processes and what I you know, want out of the client experience. So yeah, going back, if I could be by my side as I started the business, I mean, pretty much every step of the way I would change.
Right, right. Danny was actually asking, you know, we a while back we talked about those styled shoots, and like we were always like, you were always like telling and encouraging yourself to do better and be better. Like how do you do that? Like what do you do in order to look at your to how do you do better, you know?
Yeah. How do you do better?
Yeah.
It's hard. I think it's really hard. Personally, being Asian, Chinese specifically, I always had parents telling me from very young
Do
age,
better.
you can totally do better. And so I think I had that, like, you know, a lot of when I grew up, my parents weren't really like, they were very encouraging and they were very loving, but for sure it was always like, you can do better, you can do better. So I think in the back of my mind, I always had this very kind of strong need to like prove that I could do better to them. But really it's now grown into more of a passion where I look at each shoot as, or each wedding as a challenge to do different things. So for example, I brought this up actually at one of my workshops, but there was a time when I started shooting. Okay, so when I first started, I was really scared to get like close to my clients. So I was shooting them from very far away. And then as I started getting more and more comfortable, I just like be right there in their faces. And I started getting so comfortable with that and creating these really beautiful like macro shots that I forgot to like go away. You know, I forgot to give them space and photograph them from afar. So now I actually remind myself at every wedding, like, yes, I know you're really good at being in front of everyone, but now maybe you take a step back and get wider shots, because sometimes I forget about that. So I think it's like actually giving yourself concrete ways to improve. Like maybe Carla, you're a calligrapher and you don't really like to do block letters, right? So well, I don't know, maybe you do. Maybe your block letters are excellent, but maybe the challenge is to do block letters in a way that's true to your style, that's romantic and beautiful and not too modern, you know, all of that kind of stuff. So I think after a while, your challenges turn into more like you're at school and you're getting homework assignments and giving yourself assignments to complete and change.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's really cool because essentially you're, being rather critical of yourself and
Yes.
thinking and like reflecting and looking back and saying like, yeah, okay, how else? Because I mean, how else would you have thought of now actually I have to do these close-up shots and now I have to do more of these wide shots and stuff, right? Like
Mhm, mhm.
really like stepping and
You
thinking
have
about.
to, yep. It's not so much criticizing. I don't want to make people feel like they need to criticize themselves because, I mean, I certainly do that a lot, and I think that's
Yeah.
negative. I mean, I think it's also good, but really like challenging yourself, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Yeah.
I think I have Allie. Allie asked, I
Yeah.
think Allie is my bride. Allie, are you my bride? um, Allie asked, how did you find your first planner stylist and how did you reach out and maintain the relationship? So there's two different answers to this. So one is when I was really, really bad and starting out, I had a group of friends who were also really, really bad and starting out. And we all thought we were like doing really cool stuff together. And we grew up together. We grew up, we look back at what we did 10 years ago and we're like, oh my God, hopefully that never sees the light of day because it's so bad. And these are people that I've grown together with. And so they're really special to me. We get together, we do really creative things together, and we know like the kind of trajectory that we have had. And then, oh, Allie says she's not my bride. I have a bride named Allison Yu, so I was asking.
Oh,
So
funny if she was asking that question
yeah,
though.
I was like, but we've already shot our wedding. Okay, so then now, after you get to a certain point and you have a certain amount of following and people see you at a certain place in the industry, the outreach is actually coming from vendors, right? So other vendors will reach out to me to work with me, and then it's my job to kind of curate who I work with. Or like in the case of me and you, reaching out to you, Carla, was just like we both kind of had the same aesthetic, and I think we both felt like as soon as we worked together, it was just very easy and very it just kind of was meant to be. And I think those
Yeah.
are the ones that the relationships you would reach out to but continue cultivating.
Absolutely, because that's pretty much how I started as well. Like friends, actually vendors that I had looked up on Google, and I found them. I saw their aesthetic was similar to mine. I reached out to them, and they're still my closest friends in the industry today and
Mm-hmm.
closest friends in life.
Yeah.
And yes, we look back at our work so long ago. I'm like, I can't believe we posted them all that way, or like, I can't believe that was my invitation. Can we remove that from your portfolio? Um, Yada yada yada.
Exactly. How do I delete this from the internet? Mm-hmm.
Right? Especially on Pinterest. Like Pinterest is the worst for it, I think. Um, because there's no way when someone pins this, it's like somewhere elsewhere in the world. And it's like Carla's work. And every now and then I have bride coming to me with my work from like, yeah, 8 years ago. And they're like, can you replicate this? And I'm like, I don't want to replicate it.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. Totally.
Yeah, yeah, no, totally. So I mean, that was actually a bit related to what Chin Ling was asking too. She said that there was a local calligrapher designer that she wanted to work with. She just started her business. I actually really do think that if they're in a similar aesthetic as you, and that's the best place to start because both of you guys are at the same like place. It is true though that sometimes when people get big, it's a bit harder to reach them, or people just get really busy with life too, right? I mean, Jen, I know you're not as active on social media,
Mm-hmm.
but somehow we're able to still connect on it.
Mm-hmm.
But for example, if someone had requested, um, like DM'd you, but then you weren't able to see it because it goes into that little inbox, it's so hard to see. And if you're not on it all the time, you might not even see it, right?
Yes. Well, to be honest, I think a lot of people are forgetting one thing, which is that if you want to work with someone, you can always pay them. And that is actually a good way to use your marketing budget, right? So, like, I remember people would spend, I don't know, $3,000 to go to a workshop and do a photo shoot.
Right.
And, or they would spend, thousands of dollars on advertising. And what you could do is take that budget that you have allotted to this, or whatever budget that you have that's sitting around extra, and pay a vendor to work with them. And I'm not saying that like, I don't know, it sounds kind of cold, right? But a lot of people, when they get to a certain point, they just don't have the time to do things for free. And so if they get paid for something, then that opens up the possibility of them actually like getting payment for their services, and they know that you respect them, and naturally those friendships form over time, and then they end up being your vendor friend. And it's kind of like, it sounds a little silly because it's like you're paying for a friend, but I actually think it's more like I see someone who respects my time, and
Right.
someone who isn't just trying to get me to do something for free, which I just do not have the resources to do.
Yeah, no, I it's a problem I have. Like every now and then, yeah, Carla, can we do this style shoot or something? And
Yeah.
it's still
Yeah.
time and effort to do them.
Yeah. I've definitely had, like, let's say a makeup artist wants to do a portfolio shoot. She can either reach out to me and say, hey, Jen, can we do a shoot together, an inspiration shoot together? In which case I'll say no.
Right.
Or she can say, hey, how much is your rate? And then I'll probably say, hey, you're in the industry. I'll give you an industry rate and we can do this together. And then she'll get beautiful pictures and we'll have a really, really great relationship that starts from the beginning in a really solid way. And then that could, who knows, work out into even more opportunities for us to work together.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Danny had a really good question here about, about weddings being so stressful and that they go by so quickly. So how do you allow yourself to play with creativity in those situations? Especially you've got like, okay, we need to go to the next place, or like we need to get into the cocktail hour, something, it gets fairly busy.
Mm-hmm.
Or do you,
So I
yeah,
think experience is definitely a big part of my comfort level at weddings. Weddings don't really stress me out that much. I mean, some still do because there's a lot of family and emotions and stuff like that. But generally, I'm very calm at weddings, and I kind of have a mental picture of what I want to create for my bride and groom. And I also don't want to be stressed out because I don't want to add to the
there's
stress of the day for them. I mean, I know, Carla, you're usually not at the wedding, but your beautiful invitations are, of course. Um, but I think it's important for us to remain calm. The more you do it, the more comfortable you're going to be. It's like, riding a bike. And I think you need to be more than anything confident, because if you're there and you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do, I'm getting directions from everyone, you're going to kind of add to the chaos of the situation. So it's better for you to be a vendor who's there, who's strong for them, who's there to give them advice, strong advice sometimes, and move the schedule forward instead of moving things backwards or making things more crazy. In terms of creativity, sometimes at weddings you cannot be doing crazy weird things. Like you kind of I owe it to my client to provide a very consistent look. Weddings are not always the places where I go and decide to do something really weird and creative. Usually I'm trying to create a very natural kind of story, a very authentic story of the experience, shot on film, natural light. So my style is not going to vary very much unless a bride specifically requests, like, I need this weird thing to happen. Where for me, creativity is more about doing that at other places, maybe unpaid shoots, or, shoots with your friends and things like that, or just practice shoots.
or for example, do you find that you take the stationery home and play with it afterwards instead, versus like on the wedding day where you're also trying to shoot the rings and everything else?
Right. So most weddings, I actually have enough time to shoot stationery.
Okay.
I'm pretty fast with the styling now. Um, but yeah, sometimes, especially if you struggle with that, if you're like, I'm spending an hour shooting these invitations, you definitely need to take those home or have them sent to your studio and shoot them at your studio.
Right.
The reason I like shooting them at the wedding, though, is because I can have the elements from the wedding in the picture.
Right.
It's very hard to have like florals last. It's very hard to have like the rings, you're not going to have the rings, you're not going to have these little details and moments that are really special to them. And I find that then the invitation suite looks a little bit more, I don't know, more like a e-commerce, than anything else.
Do you think that then do you work with the brides in terms of a bit of the schedule, saying like, hey, I need this amount of time with you for portraits and stuff like that, and don't cut it too short, because or else you're going to get two photos?
Yeah, well, portraits is a whole separate issue because I need a certain type of light for those. I want to be in really nice natural light for those. And so portraits are, definitely scheduled way out in advance at the time that I want them to be. The
Right.
rest of the day, I like to have as much natural light as possible. So starting early instead of going late is preferable to me. That gives me a chance to shoot details, bridals, portraits, and it gives me enough natural light for everything in case anything goes wrong.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's really good. I guess like it's less so much more about like, okay, well, I like that you like just recommend them to have more time earlier because well, the
Yeah,
morning light's nice always anyway.
yeah, totally.
Yeah. And I mean, have you been shooting a lot everywhere or you been shooting a lot Santa Barbara lately?
I think you probably know I shoot all over the world, but to be honest, that is getting very, very difficult because
Too.
it's just
Yeah.
a very hard thing to do destination. I think a lot of photographers don't realize it when they start out because destination seems to be like this thing that everyone aspires to.
It sounds
I would be
cool.
so happy to shoot like at venues 5 minutes from my house for the rest of my life. I happen to live somewhere with a lot of beautiful venues, so that's a little unfair. But I really think people, because of social media, because we see so much, I think we forget that there is this whole local network available to us, and that's maybe our strongest network. And a lot of photographers are ditching it for networks that are not going to be very strong for them at all.
And I think it's very true, especially for SEO, right? Like, it's very, very difficult to be just a normal fine film photographer without anything without a location.
Right.
Because
I don't SEO, so I have no idea, but I assume that sounds right to me.
yeah, but I mean, it's similar though. For example, you have a wedding at this location, and whenever you have written something about it, that it contributes to it, right? And so for someone who is starting out, it's so important because how else are people going to find them?
Yeah,
Through Google or Instagram, by
exactly.
searching those exact ones, like
Mhm,
Santa Barbara photographer,
mhm, mhm.
example, and it's bet the client thinking like the client is pretty much it is so important to that story because if you are trying to search for clients um, then they won't be able to find you if you had thought that they would say whatever we think that they would say. Typically we're wrong about it because they're not going to type destination photographer.
Right,
But they're gonna write Santa Barbara photographer
right.
because that's like the common sense thing to do.
Exactly, totally.
But yeah, um, so with I know you had mentioned a little bit about not being so active on social media, and how has that like affected you marketing wise, and how else do you market?
Honestly, I don't know how it's affected me marketing wise because I've never done the opposite of that.
Right.
I've never been able to compare like if I was super active on social media versus not. But I do believe that in order to be successful at a small business, at a small personal business like this, you have to be really authentic to yourself.
Mhm.
And if I'm not someone who is super comfortable being on social media or showing my face, and if I do it, it's going to show how uncomfortable it really is, right? I think people who are really comfortable with it, it's very natural to them. And I think we aspire to those people, but if we aren't that type of personality, it's not going to really come off the same way.
Yes.
So I always say, do what you're comfortable with. If you love doing videos of yourself, doing stuff, if you love showing off your life in that way, or not showing off, but just showing, go for it. But if you are like, this makes me cringe, I don't want to do it, then there's no reason to do it. Find a way that you can actually communicate with people. Like for me, as you know, I don't do a lot of video. I don't do a lot of talking on stories and things like that. I just share imagery and then maybe just a few words about it. And for me, it's all about communicating with the photo itself.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's also really effective, and people forget about that sometimes about Instagram. because even I feel pressure sometimes to write an essay um, uh, on my IG post when people are really much more drawn about the story behind the photo rather than my my verbal vomit on it.
Yeah, but I mean, you can, if you can do it naturally, then people don't mind that. But if I all of a sudden wrote an entire essay on my Instagram, I think people would be like, something is, that doesn't sound like Jen.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Um, so there was a couple of questions when we were doing this RSVP thing and on the event, and it said someone was asking, how do you attract your luxury clients without planner referrals? Do they just come to you and email you directly, or how do
Yeah,
you?
I would say I get my referrals come from probably three different sources. One would be organic sources where they find me personally. The other one would be planner referrals or people, planners that I work with. And then third would just be actual referrals through either past clients or other vendors. So there's like three funnels for clients. The planners and the referrals are very similar in that people already know who I am. They know they want to work with me. They like my work and they've been told that my work is good. And then I have the organic people who are just finding me for the first time for no, for no reason besides just seeing a photo of mine. And wait, what was the question?
How do you attract them? How do you?
How do I track them? Oh yes, that's right. Okay, so yeah, so the organic people who come to me, they are finding me, I think, like you said, SEO, which I know nothing about, but I think they're finding me by searching for the images that they kind of like, whether it's on Pinterest or
Venue,
it's on
probably.
Instagram. Yeah, so they maybe see one image that they love and they find out it's by me. A lot of the organic people who find me always say, I love your work. I just keep seeing it. And so that's really important because I think if they saw my work on one blog, they'd be like, oh, cool, this Jen Huang person's nice, whatever, I'll put her on my list. But then if they keep seeing me and they keep seeing that my images are the one that they like, without even knowing that they're mine, then it really kind of seals the deal. So having consistent imagery out there is really important so that when they see my work, they start recognizing it as mine, and that helps them decide that they want me to be their photographer.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Chinling was asking, what has been the best investment in your career? Do you recommend any kind of photography education?
Yeah, my best investment, gosh, really good question. I have not been to a lot of workshops. I didn't go to workshops when I first started. I went to a film workshop with a guy called John Canlis who lives in Hawaii. But other than that, I didn't go to any other workshops. I think I really invested in my friends and family because vendors that I love hanging out with, building relationships with. I'm not really big on being, I don't want to say being fake, right? Because I think that's totally wrong. I think some people do it really well, but I really like to invest in my relationships with people that I really like and that I think are wonderful parts of my life. And I think that in turn has come back and just kind of given me a lot of really great rewarding experiences in
Yeah.
my life as well. It's hard to say.
Yeah,
What was
it's not like one workshop and that was the investment. It's more like you
Yeah.
cultivated these relationships and they're the ones that obviously rewards that you weren't even asking for.
Mhm. And then Cheng-Li was saying for photography education, um, I'm not really into the big photography workshops, to be honest. I don't think that is always the best way to learn. And they're very expensive and they ask a lot of you. I think that it's nice to tune into things like this, these little types of live videos because you probably get a lot more out of it than you think, and you're paying absolutely nothing. I also have written books because that's, instead of teaching workshops, I find that my books are my way of expressing everything that I need to say cohesively and consistently. So, and they're not very expensive. I don't think that photography education necessarily needs to be very expensive. But last thought about that is, really invest in yourself, because you can spend all this money trying to be someone else, and that's not going to sell, and that's going to be really competitive for you. So the only person that's going to stand out is you. So investing in you is really important.
Yeah, not so true. And because, well, if you're not continuously inspired or like happy, you're probably gonna die off not loving what you do. You don't invest in yourself. But hey, let's talk a little bit about your books here.
Yeah.
I want to hear about it. What do you have?
So I've got one series that's about natural posing, and it's just a posing guide, but a very different posing guide. It's not like here's 10 poses that you should do. It's more about finding authentic posing for each of your clients that's kind of unique to them and unique to your style. The other one is this master guide to fine art wedding photography. And to be honest, a lot of the questions that people have been asking today are all answered in this book.
Okay.
It covers everything about shooting weddings and about kind of like my trajectory as a wedding artist. It takes you through things like, how you're going to shoot, tips for shooting reception decor. It takes you through everything that I do at a wedding and how I kind of schedule and think about my day and structure my day and the types of images that I need to capture. And then it covers stuff like, client service, everything we've talked about, anything about wedding photography and my wedding career is kind of in this book. So
awesome.
I recommend it.
Yeah.
And it's pretty.
And it looks pretty, so I'm like, that's good. I am like such a big sucker for nice covers.
It goes with like, decor, light color decor.
You can use it to style photos.
Yes, exactly. It has been used in styling shots, so that's good.
By the way, if you guys are following through and you want to get one of these books, Jen has been super generous and sent us a code. So it's written word 30, and you get 30%. Is it 30% off this?
30% off, which has not happened
ever.
So
yeah. And this Facebook Live is only going to be available for a short period of time. So again, it's written word 30 for 30% off of her books. And I'll put up the link to her page afterwards, but I'm sure you guys already follow Jen. So you guys can go shopping after this.
Yes, please do. Go shop.
Yeah.
And get your questions answered, because there's a lot of questions that popped up that we haven't gotten to, but a lot of them are about the structure of the wedding day and how to shoot weddings and all of that, and it's all in the book.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's good because, I think you've touched on a lot of really good stuff, which is, and if they want to learn more, they can go and check out your book.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, let's just do one last question. Nowadays, Ali is asking, how do you keep your joints healthy when you need to stand, walk, bend your knees for a while?
That's actually a great question, and also really good for the ladies out there, the female photographers, because we carry a lot.
Hello? Jen, I think you're stuck. Hello? Hello? Jen? Sorry, guys. I think we're just a bit stuck here. I'm going to try to get Jen back on. So guys, I think we're stuck with Jen right now. She's having some technical difficulties, but Ellie, we are going to answer your question. We're just going to add it on to the comment section. I wanted to really thank you guys for joining us today on this call and really getting to know a little bit about Jen. I'm going to try to see if she can come back to it. But yeah, I'm really happy that you guys learned a lot from her. This is such a fun little session. It's a little bit out of my our normal group. Like we've been talking a lot about calligraphy lately, and so it's kind of nice to do something a little bit different. Talk about photography. I mean, I do some photography myself. I'm pretty serious about taking photos of my work actually as a stationer. It's just really hard because sometimes my invitations, when they reach our the photographers or on the wedding day, they don't have enough time to really style them. And I have a certain aesthetic. I really like to be able to see the words and text really good in the photos because that's what my clients are looking for. They want to see the words on my invitations. So actually, if you ask me, my tip for photographing stationery is actually really a flat lay. Doing photos a little bit on like a 45-degree angle really distorts like the proportions of the card, so it's really hard actually for me to see. And sometimes it's really hard to for the brides when they want to look at it afterwards for the portfolio, it just doesn't look great. But if there was something on it, for example their ring, that was like their focus, then it's definitely a little bit different and the approach is so much more artistic, and it's more about the rings than it is about the stationery. But yeah, so that's kind of like my request as a stationer for getting some photos of those wedding invitations. Or I do recommend that you take them home. So take some photos of the invitations on your wedding day, but take them afterwards as well, just because sometimes it is actually nicer when you get the full time to really, change things up. I think photographing them with some of the flowers the day after is not a terrible idea. But yeah, thank you guys so much for joining on this call. I'm so excited, so glad that you guys were able to come and like listen to one of our lives here at Written Word. I'm going to post Jen's link as well, and the code is Written Word 30. So that's 30%.
You hear me?
Yes. Hi.
Okay, just
You're
in time
back
for the end.
Oh my gosh. Here I was blabbing about something else. But yes, okay, your tips about like the knees and stuff.
Oh, the knees. Okay, yeah, for all the ladies.
Old ladies. No, you're not.
All the ladies, not the old ladies.
Oh.
And the old ladies.
Oh my gosh.
I highly recommend. Okay, so Carla, did you have a natural birth? So TMI, but
No, I had a C-section.
okay, me too. So I had 2 C-sections, and I also was like a giant with both of my babies. So like my hips, I don't know, the pelvic region is just a complete mess. And that's where we hold all of our weight. So for me at weddings, because I work such long days with all this equipment, I actually wear a back brace type thing, like
Oh
a
my
pelvic
gosh.
brace. Yeah. And it's not because like I'm an old lady, but I guess I am kind of an old lady now. But it's just to keep me from feeling like total crap the next day.
Okay.
Because when you first start, you know you have the adrenaline going, you're not really feeling it, but after 8 hours, 10 hours, you just like stop feeling your legs, you know. So it's important to keep all of that core tight in there.
Okay.
To make sure that you can be sustainable, because after a while it's going to be really hard. Like if I didn't wear a brace throughout my pregnancy and also while working, I don't know how long I could keep doing it.
Yeah, no, totally. And do you do like acupuncture or like massage or something like that?
Massages, yes, I treat myself with massages. What I really should be doing is going to the gym and working on my core, but I hate going to the gym. So I'll tell you guys to do it. You should totally do yoga and go to the gym, but like try to get me to do it. It's not gonna happen.
It's okay. You have like body weights every day anyway. You've got your kids.
Exactly.
Hey, that's a good workout, you need to when you're carrying them, you got to get like like tighten up your core when you're carrying them.
Tighten up the core. It's all about the core.
Yeah, no, like your bum. Like I follow this girl called Get Mom Strong on Instagram. I just like save all of her videos so that I do them when I remind myself when I see them, because
Oh,
she has 4 kids and she had a really bad like DR, like that separation thing.
yeah.
And so she
Oh
had to do
yeah,
all
no,
sorts of like workouts
that's
to kind of
bad.
get it together.
Kids do crazy things to our bodies.
I know. I mean, my baby's head was ginormous. It was like 99 percentile. So
So you're like, cut him out.
yeah, cut him out, get him out, thanks. And he was late too. He was like 41
Oh
weeks
yeah, and
old.
they get so big at the end. So yeah, it's really hard.
I'm like, I just want to eat ice cream, but I don't want to make this baby even bigger.
Oh.
But yeah, awesome. Okay, I think other people were also just asking about that back brace. Maybe you can post it in the link afterwards. But so
It's
I'm
called like a pelvic
back brace.
pelvic brace or like a pelvic something or other. If you put it like where your well, I put it like kind of above my C-section scar, but it's like kind of above your you know, underbits.
Yes.
Just to keep the lower abs kind of strengthened and tight throughout the day. You'll realize all your weight will be distributed better throughout the day, especially the weight of your cameras, and you'll feel kind of just really light on your feet. So I really recommend it.
Yeah, or get an assistant to carry everything else.
I mean, that helps too, but like even if I'm carrying, you know, like one tiny thing, I feel like it's too heavy
Oh,
for
it
me.
gets heavy over time for sure. It's 8 hours or 10
And
hours.
you start loading. I mean, when I'm shooting weddings, I don't even realize it, but I just keep putting stuff onto myself. So I try not to.
Yeah. Awesome. It was so great to have you here, Jen. I'm
Of
so glad
course.
that you were able to do this and, say hi to everyone and answer everyone's questions. So
Thank you.
good. Love it.
Guys.
Yeah. So I'll see you guys next time again, and maybe we'll have Jen come back and talk more. Who knows?
Love it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.